Hello all, welcome to Tech with SAS. In this video, we will discuss about a very popular interview question that differentiate between the REST and SOAP. So this is a very popular interview question you might have faced or might face in future. So agenda for this video is to first understand between what is SOAP and REST first in a brief manner. Then basically try to find differences between SOAP and REST. Then how to identify that which technology, either REST or SOAP, we have to use in which scenarios. Then if you're using either of them, what challenges you might expect whenever you are trying to use them, right? So let us start understanding on the SOAP side first. I have already covered REST in detail in my REST web services series. So if you want to have more clarity, please check my playlist on the REST web services. So now let's see what is a SOAP, right? So SOAP stands for the Simple Object Access Protocol. So in this, the communication happens via XML and basically over HTTP. But the main thing here is that we have a formal contract called the WSDL WSDL, that is the Web Service Description Language. So in this WSDL file, whoever the exposing the web service, they define all the operations, input, output, and their uh, types, right? So all those are defined in the visual file. So it's like a very rigid type of contract which we define for the SOAP services, and whatever the messages we exchange between the applications and the web services, so that is via the SOAP envelope, right? So if you see this, these are basically the parts of a WSDL. So visual is basically having the operations. So whatever operations you want to perform, for example, you are trying to develop a SOAP web service for the e-commerce application. So maybe you can have like get order, create order, right? And also the payment service, right? So all those operations we can define in the operations section of the WSDL. Then for every operation, you must define the input output, like so there are types we define for that. And then what is the protocol you have to use? So suppose you want to use HTTP or UDP or whatever protocol, you can define in Visual as well. And then the endpoints. So whatever endpoints by which your client or any application which want to access your service can use, right? So it is basically a contract in which all the operations, data types, protocols, and endpoints are defined, and this is basically kind of a starting point by which a client generate their code, and we can then access your application or your web service. So now whatever exchange of data is happening between the web service and the client is happening through the SOAP envelope or SOAP message, right? So in the SOAP message, there are multiple parts. Like for example, it has SOAP envelope. Then we have the SOAP body element, which basically having the name of your web service, whatever the name. Suppose here you can see that the name is of service is the Tech with SAS tutorial web service, right? So whatever the service name you want to basically access, you will define in this SOAP message. Then whatever the input parameters are required to for that web service, you have to pass them as a parameters. So these are simple example of the SOAP message. So whenever we talk about the SOAP world, we think about the XML based WSDL and SOAP messages. That are, I mean, that is basically the main basic part. And whenever we want to exchange messages, we use the XML and the SOAP based messages, right? So now let's understand what is REST. So REST is basically acronym for the representational state transfer, and basically a architectural style. It's not like a rigid contract or rigid type of a specification, but it kind of a very flexible architecture style, right? So here, what we do, we use simply some verbs like get, post, put, delete to make request to the web service. And also whatever URIs which we use here are visioned as resource-based URIs. For example, suppose you have a like employee, right? So employee becomes a resource. So at at one point, what is the state of employee object? Then how you are transforming it or you are changing it, right? So basically, this is basically work on the resource-based URIs. Then, if you want to understand more, so whatever the exchange is happening between the web service and the client, that happens via HTTP request response. And then whatever the format we can use, that is mostly JSON, which is more popular. Then we also have the XML text and few others. And then there is no definition of service like we have the visual file, right, for SOAP. But here there is no formal contract which we create for the REST web services. But yes, we create the some API documentation that is used by a client so that they can understand, okay, what are the inputs, outputs are basically in the contract or API contract for this REST service. So, so now till now, I think whatever we covered. So REST is basically a kind of a uh, technology where we use the get, put, post, delete methods as a means to interact with the web service, and also we use the resource-based URIs, and there is no formal contract in REST world like we have in SOAP world, like the we have the visual contract over there. So now let's understand on the focus or area of this video, that is the difference between the REST and SOAP. So first thing, I think we already discussed that the full form, right? SOAP is basically a simple object access protocol, and REST is the representational state transfer. So this is the difference between these two. Then in SOAP, we have the standardized protocol and standardized artifacts for the contract like WSDL. But in this, there is no such contract. It's basically a loose kind of style where we have some guidelines or some constraints, but there is nothing called as a formal contract. And then there are some recommendations which we should follow if we are trying to achieve the RESTful APIs, right? Then whatever the URIs or URLs, right, which we use for SOAP, they are the verb based. So for example, if we have an order, right, so you will say, okay, I want to get order or basically delete order. So, I mean, these are like a verb based URIs. But when you talk about the REST, they have the noun-based URI. So, suppose you have a message, right? Suppose you have a message. So, you'll not say, I want a get message. You will say, okay, message slash message ID and use the get as a verb. So, it automatically identifies, okay, I have to get the message ID one from the message resource. So, whatever data is there in the system, it's exposed as a resources. So that's why we say that in the REST world, the resource-based URIs are used, and we always use the noun-based URIs, not the verb-based URIs. It's a main difference. So if you are trying to create any REST web service, avoid using the get, set, whatever those verbs, right? Always try to think as a resource, right? Then by default, both SOAP and REST are stateless. But SOAP can be used as a stateful as well. And when you talk about the stateless, it means that whatever the information between the two transactions is not known to both of them. I mean, suppose, for example, if there is one transaction happening, then in second transaction, it will not be aware of the first transaction. So that's why it will not store any kind of the state of previous transaction. So that's why they are called stateless in the sense, right? Because whatever the transactions are happening, they are stateless, and nobody is going to store the state of the results of the previous transactions. So that whenever we are hitting next time, it's like a new request. It may be for the same client for same request or something different, but in nutshell, whatever the request is being placed, it is unaware of any previous request going has been already placed. So that's why both are kind of stateless, but SOAP can be made RESTful as well. So, if you talk about the data contract or the content type, so content type in SOAP is only XML, but in REST we can use XML, JSON, plain text, and many more. But the most popular in REST world is the JSON only. And if we talk about the protocols used by the application or the web services, the REST only uses the HTTP, but SOAP has the options of using the HTTP, SMTP, UDP, and few others. So if you want to use any particular protocol, then other than HTTP, then you must use the SOAP services, right? Now we have understood, okay, what are the differences between the SOAP and REST. Now the question is that when to use which, because both are the industry grade standard for the web services development. So which is the best and when it is best to use which one? So let's understand like when to use REST. So, because REST is very lightweight, right? Because what are messages we exchange between system are very lightweight. So, whenever you have a limited resources or bandwidth, you can use REST because it will not require a lot of bandwidth or resources to basically achieve the objectives. Second thing is that it is stateless. So whenever you don't need to preserve the state of the transactions, and every transaction can start afresh without knowing about the previous state, then we can use the REST services. And also developing REST is very easy kind of because there are no complex contract to be created. And I mean, there is no such kind of a contract or maybe some rigid things like we have in SOAP are there. So ease of development is also there with REST. And then I think repeat point. So yeah, so we should not use whenever we have whenever we have like limited resources and bandwidth, we can use the REST for sure. Then when to use the SOAP services. So if you want to have those transactions which are stateful, so it means that you want to preserve the previous transaction state and pass as an input to the next transaction, then you can use the SOAP services. And for the asynchronous processing as well. So if you want to run in a batch mode or basically want to defer the processing, you can use the SOAP protocol. And also, if you want to use any other protocol other than HTTP like SMTP or UDP, then SOAP is the only option in among I mean between these two options, right? Then, whenever you want to have like a formal means of communication, like because in SOAP, we create the WSL file, so that's why it's like a more formal contract. So if you want that functionality, you can use the SOAP services. So now let us understand what are the challenges for SOAP. So as we know that we use the visual file for the SOAP. So whenever we generate a visual file, we distribute it to our client. So but if in case if there is any small change required, for example, here we can see the operation name is the say hello, right? Suppose you want to change to say hi. So for that you have to create a new visual file and distribute to all your clients because now because of this small change every client has to change their code, so it's a big challenge, right? So whenever you have many clients, right, suppose you have 10-20 clients, and then it's difficult to inform them and also make sure that they are going to update their services, right? So it is difficult to maintain and also modify the existing web services. Second thing is that document size. So as we discussed that it is using the XML, right? So there are so many tags in XML, XML, right? So whatever messages we are exchanging between the systems, they are very heavy. So if you have a limited bandwidth or resources, then it's difficult for you to process the big messages, right? So that's why these are two challenges that whenever there's a small change in WSDL, every client has to change their web services. And second is that the messages or the document which are being exchanged between the applications are big in size. Now let us understand the challenges for REST. So, like we know that in SOAP we have some inbuilt security features. Like for example, we have these few tags like AWS security and few others, right? So those are like inbuilt security features. But in REST, there's nothing like that. So REST has to apply the security features using other models like OAuth or I mean that JOT. But yeah, so there is no inbuilt security feature as such which we see in SOAP. And then lack of a state. So if you want to preserve the state of any request or transaction, then you cannot do that in REST because it is completely stateless. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Please leave comments or questions and please subscribe as well. Thanks a lot.